I was walking through the park where most people in my neighborhood walk their dogs. I usually know who is who and everybody is a familiar face. And there is this new lady there, and usually the group of people say hi to each other. And yes, we do socially distance, but they do say hi. Everybody spoke to her like she was a regular, and I was a bit confused as I'd never seen or met her before. When her and I spoke, she gave me this weird look after I told her that she looked just like the actress Sarah Michelle Gellar. Everybody looked at me funny and asked who that was, and I said, oh, the actress from the 90s. And I listed off movies that she was in, and nobody knew those movies or seemed to even know who she was. I found that weird because I'm pretty sure that they did know and watch those movies. They weren't a really, really young group of people. They were more or less my age. Then I tried to Google Sarah Michelle Gellar, and what's weird was that there was literally no trace of her. And it was the same for all of her movies and everything that she had starred in when she was younger. Later on, the Sarah Michelle Gellar look-alike seemingly disappeared, and everybody that had met her and that was talking to her that day had zero memory of that Sarah Michelle Gellar look-alike ever being in our area or in our neighborhood. And I guess it's not a coincidence that after that happened, the original Sarah Michelle Gellar was back to being in our universe an hour later after doing some Google searches and even speaking to some people who claimed they didn't remember her. All of a sudden, they remembered her. I've been seeing some posts about how the year 2021 has started something in the universe, and then I remember what happened to me on New Year's. I need to backtrack for a moment to get to some key points. About 2, maybe 3 months ago, I had Chinese food with my dad, and I got a fortune from a fortune cookie that said, it's not about the quantity of your friends, but rather the quality of your friends. At the time, I had a really crappy friend, and I had to get rid of that person, so I laughed it off and maybe threw it in my purse or in my jean pockets or something that I was wearing that day. Fast forward to New Year's, and me and my boyfriend had drinks, and his brother came home and got sick in the bathroom, so I decided to clean it up, as I was close to my boyfriend's brother as well. I scrubbed the floors and toilets and was on my hands and knees all over the floor cleaning up his vomit. And I know it sounds disgusting, but that's how we as friends and loved ones take care of each other. The next morning I wake up to use the bathroom, and I sit down on the toilet, and right in front of me, perfectly placed in front of the toilet, is my fortune that I had first received when I went to go eat Chinese food with my dad months earlier. With the same saying, the same lucky numbers, just dirtier and a little bit beat up. If I wasn't on the toilet, I would have probably defecated on myself just by seeing something like that. I wore new clothes that night. I hadn't seen this piece of paper in months, and here it is, carefully placed and ready for me to read in the most perfect spot. It's weird, but I'm going to take this as a sign from the universe that maybe I need to get some better people in my life. 8 years ago, my wife had her first stroke and was hospitalized for over a week. I never left my wife's side, despite a huge setback that was caused by what I believe to be an incompetent nurse. She had taken my wife's blood pressure while she was sleeping, and she said that it was normal. However, even during her sleep, it might have been high because of the stress, so she'd pushed for my wife to be released the next day. But when my wife woke up, her blood pressure shot back up. I believe the nurse should have known that her blood pressure could have gone back up after she woke up. The nurse tried giving her several injections and pills to bring the blood pressure back down so that she could be released, but the stress of it all, plus possibly some medication that was given to her by the nurse, caused my wife to have her largest stroke yet. One of her eyes looked like it was going to pop out of her head, and she was so incoherent, and it was terrifying. Her mom and I were both in the room, and she was stabilized and released about 2 weeks later. At home, I became her constant caretaker, which I am to this day. A month or so later, I went out to get groceries. I did this in my wife and I's car, and it's a black Honda Element, which is important for the story. And I'd also like to mention that my mother-in-law also drove an Element, but it was orange. I loaded the groceries into the car and drove home. My wife's mother came out to meet me when I arrived back. We lived with her as her husband passed away in 2010, and my wife's mother was in a panic, asking where I'd been. I was confused when she asked me that, and I told her that I went to get my wife and I some food. Then the look she gave me was absolutely that of pity and grief. She called back into the house to my wife's adopted brother, who also lived there. "It happened again," she said. "Come help him inside." Then she looked at me, hugged me, and softly said, crying a little, "Honey, your wife passed away in the hospital a month ago. We were both there. You sold your car to pay for the funeral. That's why you had to borrow mine." I stared at her, pulled away, and swirled to look at the car that I had just been getting the groceries out of, and it was an orange Element. There was no groceries in the back. Our black Element was nowhere to be seen. My brother-in-law came out, and they tried to get me inside as the full weight of reality hit me. My wife was dead, not waiting for me in our room with our cat. She was dead, and I would never see her again. As the screen door closed behind us when they got me inside, I felt this jarring sensation. After that happened, I felt this other strange feeling, and then I opened my eyes and I looked in the rear view at the groceries, and I'm back. This was definitely our car. I pulled out my cell phone and I called my wife, and I woke her up from her nap and I told her what I had just experienced. She was freaked out but comforted me and reiterated that she was okay and I'd see her at home when I got there, which I did. I know it sounds crazy when I came back from shopping to find my stroke survivor of a wife had not in fact survived her strokes. I had not been driving the car that I was driving, apparently, and she was dead. But I guess I was just spacing out or something, because as soon as I realized that my wife was dead, I found myself back in our old car with the groceries in the back seat, and thank God my wife was alive waiting for me at home. I know it all sounds crazy, but it really happened to me. I know that I was there. It's almost like I shifted to another plane of existence and then came back. It's all crazy, but it happened. Believe me, it happened. So this story is about 20 years old, and I've never told a soul about it, but reading through a lot of these stories has inspired me to share mine. When I was 18, maybe 19, I was really into lowrider trucks and such. I had ordered a set of 20-inch wheels and tires from a local shop and couldn't wait for them to come. The day finally came, and I got the call that I could come pick them up. I threw on some clothes and left to go get them. It's about a 20-minute drive, and I made it in about 12 minutes driving too fast from the excitement. So I get to the shop, and just as I'm climbing out of the truck, I realize that I forgot my checkbook. I had paid half up front and was going to pay the rest after I picked up the order. I did not own a debit card or a bank card at that time, but I knew that there was a branch of the bank that I used just around the corner from the shop, and I knew my account number off the top of my head, so I thought that I could just go show them my ID and withdraw the cash. I walked up to the corner of the street, and I'm just getting ready to start crossing when I hear my name called from behind me. I turn around, and this older guy is waving, looking right at me. He looked familiar, but I cannot place him anywhere in my mind. We're about 30 yards apart, and he says, "How are you doing?" I say, "Pretty good, how have you been?" hoping a name will come to me. At that split second, a car ran the red light, and the car going the opposite direction slams the brakes and screeches to a halt. I turn around to see the commotion, and there was no collision, just a pissed-off driver laying on the horn and another car speeding away. I turned back to look at the guy again, and he's nowhere to be found. He's gone. I mean, he just vanished because we were in a fairly open space, and there was nowhere that he could have run off to at full speed and gotten away without me seeing him, much less to walked away. I was like, what in the world is going on? It then occurred to me that if he wouldn't have called my name, then I would have almost certainly have been hit by the car that ran that light. That's all weird enough on its own, but there's something else. Like I said, I was a teenager basically when this occurred. Skinny, baby-faced teenager. So when I got to be about 30, I started keeping a beard and had gotten up to 230 pounds in weight or so. I looked in the mirror one day and instantly that memory flashed back into my mind. That guy calling my name was me. From the future. I work at a big box club store. A few weeks ago I was stocking products on one of the tables. Across the table was an elegant older woman with silver hair, probably in her 60s. She looked at me, stared at me, and I stared back at her. There was something familiar in her eyes. Towards the end of this awkward looking or staring of the eyes, she began to look quite sad. I could swear that I saw her tears begin to well up in her eyes. One of my employees detached me from that moment, and when I turned back to look at her, she was gone. I must have been her height, the way she stood, her eyes, and the way she looked at me, but I knew in my heart that woman was my wife, except my wife is 35 and has far less gray hair than the woman that I saw. And I know why she seems so sad, or at least I think I do. I currently suffer the worst depression and anxiety that I've ever suffered at any time in my life. My wife probably has an idea of how bad it is, but doesn't know truly. I'm truly not doing well, and if she knew today, she'd be as sad as that older woman was. I wonder if this was some kind of a glitch. Or maybe I'm just seeing or reading too much into things. Did she somehow travel back in time? I don't know, but I won't forget that face since I wake up to it and see it every single day. This happened last year. My friend and I were getting off school and we were chatting near the school's gate when for a split second the sky turned black. I know what happened, but I thought that I was crazy and I said nothing. But a few minutes later I asked if somebody else had seen it. One of my friends said that he saw what I saw, but thought that he was crazy, so he also kept silent about what he had seen at first too. Of 4 people, we were the only ones who saw it. The others didn't believe it. My friends and I don't know what happened, but after a little bit of searching, I've found that there is some related or similar experiences here on this forum, but I don't know how else to explain it. I'm from Brazil, and if anybody knows what happened, please let me know. It wasn't planes or a cloud or some kind of a large bird. I know what those things look like, and this was something that I've never experienced before ever in my entire existence. This was about 2 years ago, but it was so strange that I've decided to share it. The morning started off normally enough, but I woke up to my mom shaking me awake saying, "Get up. You're gonna be late for school." I was confused because I thought that it was Saturday, but it's possible that I got the days mixed up. I'll add that it's highly unlikely since at the time I had 2 jobs and needed to know what day it was. I got up and went to school as per usual. I got sick with mono, but that day I felt that it was going to go away. After I got home, I began getting ready for work. As I was putting on my makeup, I suddenly coughed and blood came out in a giant clot. It was super gross. I felt fine, but I grabbed paper towels And when I returned, the blood clot that I had coughed up was gone. No splatter or anything. It was really strange, but I had to get to work. Later at my restaurant job, we were all really busy. Me and my coworker watched an entire table leave, so we went to clean it off for the next people on the list. We got back up to the front and I told the people waiting to come follow me to the table. As I'm heading towards the table, I was stunned. The people who had left were back at the table. All of their plates were there as if we had never touched anything or cleaned anything up or escorted anybody away. I apologized and said they must have sat themselves back, but that was impossible. I told my coworker and he looked confused. He came back after checking and was just as confused as I was. We both remember cleaning off the entire table and watching the people leave. After the shift, we begged our manager to let us watch the footage. The footage shows that the table never left, but there was a weird moment where the camera seemingly gets bumped a little by something. I remember what was on the table to this day. 3 Rolling Rock glasses, 2 Belgian moon glasses, 2 regular plates, and 3 pasta bowls. I don't know if me coughing up what I coughed up earlier, that blood clot, had anything to do with this glitch, but it just stuck out to me for some reason, so I mentioned it. So, in July for my birthday, I would say that I had an ego death, but I won't get into too many details about that at all. This happened about 1 or 2 weeks later when I came home from work and noticed a ceiling fan in my living room. I have lived in this house for 3 years and have never seen the ceiling fan before. This is a small house that I'm talking about, maybe 1,500 square feet or so, with only 1 living room. I knew that I had a light on the ceiling, but never a fan. I also had installed a window AC maybe 5 feet from this ceiling fan over the summer, but I had never turned it on. I was convinced that this ceiling fan was new. My boyfriend was also living with me in this house for the entire 3 years that I was there and did not remember it either, and he is a lot taller than me, and his head would have hit the pulley device to make the fan go. I checked for old pictures of this house from when it was for sale, and it doesn't show any fan in that living room. I asked friends and my brother, and nobody seems to remember it either. But I have a feeling that this fan showed up because it's some kind of a symbol of this new reality that I'm in. As I mentioned earlier, I had an ego death, and after that, I noticed this fan in the living room. I think somehow because I changed my perspective, I'm now in some kind of a new reality.